Okay, Carl,
Well,
maybe you and I will just say a few things about Anna and this lovely lady that we know.
it's great to see Anna here today. I've been boxing with Anna's a competitive boxer with me in our rock boxing. No, I know you at least about 6 years now, I guess.
Yeah, it's been long.
Um,
Yeah.
um, and
Well, and I have to say, Anna is a dynamo, not only in the Rocksteady gym, but with her work in the Parkinson's community. We're very pleased to have her today. I really would love to say more about her and how wonderful she has taken her experience with Parkinson's and then create a community around it. And but she has this awesome video. So Anna, I'll let you start and then we'll roll the video and then that'll take over the rest of the introduction. So thanks, Anna, for being with us today.
Thank you so much. You guys they're great friends of mine and really appreciate the opportunity. My name's Anna Grill, as she mentioned, and I was diagnosed, it'll be 16 years ago in March. So I'm not going to tell you much more about my story because, as Angela said, I've actually documented it in a video. So it's about 4 minutes long and it'll kind of give you the background of my life before and after Parkinson's. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the organization that I have now that I'm real proud of and that we're doing a lot of good with. So Angela, you're going to roll the tape.
I'll roll the videotape as soon as I get it back up on the active screen.
You ready? What else can I tell you? I live in Vienna, Virginia currently with my husband, and we have 2 adult daughters that are now 23. They'll be 24 and 22 in March. So you'll see how young it started on the video, but that's how old they are now. So.
Okay, I got it, Anna. So we're gonna roll videotape.
Awesome, thanks, dear. Oh, you want to turn it up a little bit?
It's great to be here with you today. My name is Anna Grill, and I'd like to share my Parkinson's disease story with you. But first, a quick introduction. I am a wife to an amazing guy I met in high school. I am a mother to 2 beautiful daughters. I am a daughter, sister, aunt, and friend, and I am a person living with young onset Parkinson's disease. It was quite a shock to learn at the age of 38 that the hardly discernible tremor in my left pinky was a symptom of young onset Parkinson's. How could that be? I was an active, fit 30-something, living my best life, working full-time in a career that I loved, while successfully balancing the roles of wife and of mother to a 9- and 7-year-old. Between quickly climbing the corporate ladder and being elected PTA president at my kids' elementary school, there was no room on my to-do list for Parkinson's. And for the next 10 years, I purposefully kept it off my list, keeping it to myself and forging on with life. Perhaps I was being stubborn and naive, but my girls were too young to understand the complexities of PD, and I was the primary earner in the family. With the meds prescribed, my symptoms were easy to mask for quite some time. I had worked extremely hard to become the youngest and only female member on my leadership team at work. I wanted my results, not my disability, to continue to define me at work and in life. So while keeping a smile on my public face, my private self felt very isolated and alone, dealing with an old person's disease that no one, including me, understood. After working full-time for 10 years with PD, I realized that things needed to change. I left my 28-year career in management and started managing through the reality that I have a life-altering movement disorder that affects not just me, but all those around me. Since then, my life has changed a lot. Now, I count pills instead of sales quotas. Thanks to disability benefits, I now spend my time working on my health and mobility instead of working to make a living. I was born and raised in the suburbs surrounding Philadelphia.
Go Eagles!
Watching all the Rocky movies. Today, I refer to his quotes frequently for motivation. Here's my favorite.
Nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When Parkinson's knocks me down, I choose to get up off the mat. I choose to fight, and I do not allow the things that I can't do to keep me from doing the things that I can. Following my retirement, I quickly became a Parkinson's volunteer. It was through this work that I became convinced of the need for services specifically geared towards the young onset population. We experience the disease far differently than our elder counterparts. We are young, active, and busy with our lives, with our families and careers. So I decided to do something about that. In 2019, I started working towards establishing the first organization solely dedicated to young onset Parkinson's disease. I am proud to say that the Young Onset Parkinson's Network is now an incorporated 501c3 nonprofit created by the young onset community for the young onset community. We are passionate in our cause and resolute in our mission. Thank you for listening to my story today, and I invite you to join us in our quest for better lives for those with young onset PD.
Yeah. I don't know what it means when you can sum up your whole life in 4 minutes. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but obviously it wasn't my whole life, but my adult life, most of my adult life. So yeah, so I hope everybody could hear that well, and that resonated with you all. So that's me. I'll pick the story up from there now with kind of where YOPN, as we call the Young Onset Parkinson's Network. It's quite a mouthful. That's where we are now, which is about, I guess I recorded that video back in maybe like 2020, early 2020. So we've been working on it for a long time. We just started with memberships in this past March, but it's been a lot of work and a very long road, but very rewarding for me. So Angela, if you could just put my slides up, and sure. I don't mind if you have questions, if you want to ask them throughout. We're a small group, it's fine. Yeah. So just speak up if you want to ask me anything.
All righty, Anna. Let's
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Carl, for breaking the ice.
I'm scared. What are you gonna ask?
What advice do you have to young onset, people with young onset right now? From the things you've learned so far.
What have I learned so far doing this?
Yes.
Well, a lot of things, I think. I guess I always knew that there was a need, but there's the difference between knowing there's a need and really seeing that there's a need. And I think that really came through when you'll see at our growth rate and how fast we've kind of taken off in the world of young onset. So that was one thing. And the other thing is it's kind of on the flip side of the coin. I know there's so much more out there, so many more out there that we need to touch, that unfortunately another feature of young onset, and I don't want to say guilty of it myself, but I lived it myself, right? For 10 years, we don't like to come out of the closet. And it's really a shame. There is a bit of shame with the disease, and I don't really understand why, because it's not anything that any of us did. But for some reason, I have a friend who has both young onset and osteoarthritis, the real bad form of arthritis. And I mean, God bless her, but she's very open about her arthritis, but she to this day does not speak about her Parkinson's. So it's a weird phenomena, and it's certainly something that we're trying to break through and kind of erase the stigma of, because there shouldn't be one, and get more people out and involved, because we all know that with PD, one of the biggest no-nos, so to say, is to isolate yourself and stay out of the public eye. And we really have to force ourselves to stay out in the living world in order to stay alive ourselves, so to say. So that's my answer for you, Carl.
That leads me to another question. How difficult was it for you how much better was it for you after you told
Oh, yeah. Great question. Yeah. It was interesting. I mean, I waited way too long. Like, I mean, everybody knew something was up with me, but because of my work situation, because of course I knew there were ADA protections, but in the corporate world, there's a lot of other rules, unwritten rules that that they can work around you if needed. Especially when you're in sales and one of the minority women in the group. So I was very careful about that. And then I never really intended to keep it a secret for so long, but it's kind of like, once you don't tell people, it's like, there's never a good time to tell people you have a neurodegenerative disease that there's no cure for. So it's not like you're going to drop that one at a party or a social event typically. So, it's kind of an evil snowball effect that happens. And at least for me, the longer I kept it quiet, the harder it was to tell people. But so I guess once I told people, it was definitely a relief, after hiding it for so long. And of course, as everybody usually says at these things, it was not as bad as I thought it would be. I mean, of course, the responses I got were fantastic, and my friends totally, support me, but they know how to deal with me, right? Because I don't want to be pitied, and they know that. So I typically get a lot of pushing and support that direction then versus the empathetic, small, sad ear. So that's the way I like to roll though. So that's fine with me. But yeah, I mean, keeping it to yourself is just another layer of stress. And we certainly know that none of us need more stress with this disease. So it was a good thing to finally get it off my chest for sure.
And Anna, Bob has his hand up. So Bob, do you
Okay. Great. I can't see anything but my screen, so sorry.
Can you go ahead? So go ahead, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Angela and Anna. I wanted to comment on your coming out, so to speak, and how difficult it is for some of us. I was in a focus group out in Phoenix. I was recruited by Amneal, the manufacturer of Rytari, to come out and help them with an outreach message focus group. One of the gentlemen was there. He was in his 50s, so I guess that's not even young onset. He was a server technician, a computer technician.
Yeah.
Working, with his mind mostly. Maybe he had a screwdriver. He told his boss he got diagnosed as soon as he found out, hey, boss, I got Parkinson's.
Right.
He was fired immediately on the spot.
Awful.
Because he said the boss didn't want the liability of something going wrong, despite ADA.
I know. Well,
he did not file a complaint because he thought he would be blackballed by the industry, and if he files a complaint, nobody would ever hire him again. And I think that's also true, like if you're a nurse.
Yeah.
Because
any of those fields, and I think your career is cut much shorter if you have a career that involves. Paul One from boxing. He was a dentist.
Yes.
He had to stop real early, and he was very depressed. Yeah.
The dentist that I had in my PD self class, the self-actualization, he's a Parkinson's Foundation partner in research.
Okay.
And he was a dentist. He donated his office space for the classrooms. He said he had to retire when his son told him, Dad, nobody wants a shaky dentist. So he became a volunteer for the police department to ride around with people that were trying to pass their driver's tests.
Oh my, that's gotta be the worst job ever.
A police auxiliary officer.
Goodness.
But thank you for your work. This is a wonderful thing. I one other comment.
Sure.
Is young onset when you're diagnosed before 40 or 50?
I'm going to get to that in 1 minute.
I just want to say a lot of us, I had many cardinal symptoms undiagnosed in my 30s.
Exactly.
One of which was not swinging my arm while I was training for the marathon. Rigidity, going to physical therapy for a rigid back and legs where I never got better.
True. Yeah, it's so true. I think they're finally, and y'all get to this point as well in the slides, they're finally starting to consider it as a condition if you're under 50. I mean, before, like, the doctors wouldn't even consider that it was possible. And I know Carl has a lot of stories around this. I was fortunate. I got diagnosed within 3 months. But I was the exception. And I think they caught it really soon with me because all I had was that tremor in my pinky and I was nothing else.
What we need is a good easy tests that they could do in the clinic, you know, a blood test, a skin
No.
test.
Not
even
that
a blood test.
APDRS is not very, very helpful. So,
Right.
yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think I'll get to your answer on the other side that you had when I go through my slides. So
And
thank you.
Nancy,
Okay.
Anna, Nancy had her hand up too. Nancy, did
great.
you have a question too?
Yeah, I just had a question because I don't know if this would be beneficial to anyone.
Sure.
Was
Yeah.
there something that after, 10 years did you just decide one day to tell people, was there something that led up to it and that might be helpful for people to sort of put it in context?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It really all revolved around my work, and when there was two things that happened. One, I was in a sales driven environment. So we ran a fiscal year, July 1 to June 30. And everything revolved around that year as far as work goes with events and things. And so, I knew that I was either signing up for another year if I stayed, come June that year, or I was going to make my exit. And I also was a little strategic about it in the sense that I also knew that my disability ultimately would be calculated on my prior year's earnings. So I was in a situation where I could kind of plan that out to make sure that I exited on a high note and that I was protected to the maximum that I could be based upon what I knew that disability calculation would be. So all those things kind of fell into place. Like I was starting to struggle at work, and with my job, if I declined in my performance for that reason, my compensation would go down, and then my calculation for the long-term disability would go down. So I was a little strategic about that. So I knew it was time to get out. It was the right time of year with our calendar, and it was the best thing I could do for myself. So, yeah. But, it's funny. I do say now that had COVID hit like 4 years, like a year before I had left, I'd probably still be working because I can sit here behind the desk and still be pretty presentable. It was all the driving around the Beltway and rushing to appointments and walking into strange buildings and trying to get in elevators and all that mess that really got me. So I could have had an extended career, I think, had that happened sooner, but everything happens for a reason. So now I'm doing what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Thanks,
Anna. So
Yeah.
I'll put the slides back up
All
and
right.
let
Thank
me,
you for your questions.
yeah, can you see?
Yeah, I see it. That's perfect. All
Okay,
right.
great.
We won't do a ton of these, but I have a few. And actually, if you wanted to now, Angela, if you want to play the second, well, now you got this up. I don't want to do that to you.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do that.
I'll do a few slides and then I'll ask you to play the second one. All right, cool. So let me tell you a little bit about where YOPN is today. If you can advance the slide, dear.
Sure.
So here's your answer, Bob. Technically, medically, as far as I'm aware of, the typical or the traditional definition of young onset is a diagnosis before the age of 50. And I was diagnosed at 38, and I know Carl was diagnosed far before my age. There's a lot of physical similarities between what myself and many of you are going through, but there's a lot of differences too. And I don't think that I think that the biggest differences are not medically necessarily. I think they're more social arena type of things, lifestyle things. Obviously, when this hits you before retirement, you're in a much different situation, and all your plans for the future and your financial planning and whatnot kind of goes out the window, because you're not going to have that steady stream of income or bonuses or things that you used to get. Well, so that's definitely a big difference, and something that my husband and I have had to work through. He's a teacher, by the way. You might be wondering what he does, since I said I was previously the breadwinner. So you could pretty much do any job and make more than he does. So as sad as a story that is on society, but things like savings and insurance obviously is very big. And the sad thing is, with the insurance piece, folks typically need to have gotten the insurance before they got diagnosed. And most people don't even think about it, and a lot of people I talk to my age don't even know what their benefits are at work. So that's one of the things I've tried to focus on with YOPN, is really kind of pressing on that point that there are some options for you once you get diagnosed, but far less. But for those that are still in that situation, we try to help them out and get them the right information they need. Navigating the workplace and career, we've talked a lot about that already. You saw that on the video. That's a really hard thing to do when you're young. And, no doubt, relationships, dating and marriage these folks that are getting diagnosed young either are single or, A lot of divorces happen. The divorce rate's much higher with young onset PD than the regular population. And marriage, they might have just gotten married, they're starting to have kids. Like, what does that mean to them that one parent has young onset now? So the raising the kids, I did that too, and I didn't handle that very well either. So a lot of my early on stories is more do what I say, not what I do, because unfortunately I kept it so long for my kids. They were 7 when I got diagnosed, 9 and 7. So I didn't feel like that was the right time. But then again, just like with my work and my friends, the longer you wait, the longer you think you can get away with it. And unfortunately, my youngest, who is now 21, will be 22 in March. When she was, I think they were 12 and 14 when I told them. And she, at 12 years old, had gotten into my medicine, knowing something was up with me, seeing some of my symptoms, had gotten into my medicine cabinet and found all my meds. And she Googled them herself and had self-diagnosed me with Huntington's disease, which, is fatal. So I still to this day regret that decision. And she and I had a very strange relationship, probably from the time she was 12 to the time she was about 18, 19. And I think a lot of it had to do with that episode, because I think there was a lot of trust that was broken. So that's probably my most tragic situation that I've had since I've gotten diagnosed with the disease, and I handle it the way I did. So I'm a big proponent now of, talking to people, or especially your kids. There's children's books, there's all sorts of things that you can use now. And I think it's a little bit more, I think every year the awareness of the disease in the younger population is becoming more and more evident. So that's all positive things. And that's my bad story about that. So if you want to go to the next slide.
And Anna, we do have, Bob has his hand up again with a question. Bob,
Yes, I can't see, so moderate for me, please. That's great. Hi, Bob.
Just a quick question on the insurance. Were you talking about long-term care insurance, health insurance?
Well, I was talking mostly about disability insurance, but long-term care would fall into that category as well. Not so much healthcare, but long-term disability. And usually most employers have a short-term disability plan that you can take advantage of for no charge. But the long-term, which kicks in after 6 months, is something that you usually have to pay for. So many don't. They don't realize it, or they don't know, or they don't think it's important. I mean, I was fortunate that I stayed at the same company. I only worked for one company my whole career. And I started with them right out of college. So at that point in time, I was still running everything by my dad, as you might expect, and reviewing things with him and getting his counsel. And he said, thank God, he said, just sign up for everything you can, you never know what's going to happen. You should have, and I don't have any PD in my family, just to mention that too. So it wasn't due to that. It was just like his wise guidance to just sign up for everything. He's like, don't worry about the deductions, just do it. So I did. And basically $13 a pay period biweekly for almost 30 years, 28 years, bought me, 60% of my income not taxable, thereafter until I retire age. So without that, we'd be sunk. So that was a savings. That was a savior for me and for our family and our financial stability. So that's what I'm talking about. So that is the type of insurance that you can't get, obviously, after you're diagnosed with something like this.
great advice from your dad. I'm so glad you got that advice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I know
anything
Carl has a question.
Just a factoid. It wasn't long ago that young onset was under 60.
Was it really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with my organization, we're kind of loose. I mean, we like up to I pretty much should say 55 now for our organization, because I don't like to turn people away, but at the same time, I don't really think people much older than that would have the same interest in what we talk about and the speakers we have necessarily. Sometimes for sure, but a lot of it's like what I'm talking to y'all about now. Like, we're not in retirement, we're running around with our hair on fire, and we taking kids to games and practices and friends and PTA and work and everything else. And it's just a crazy world. So we'd probably just stress you out if you came over me.
Well, I'm guessing you don't check IDs at the door, do you?
No, we don't. We definitely.
Well, and Anna, I think you, I think Bob brought up a good point, which is a lot of people may be walking around, because of the fact that, identifying Parkinson's is still so difficult. People could be walking around, having constipation and depression, and then not realizing that these are the early symptoms of
I know.
Parkinson's.
Every time my kids get it, I'm like, I don't talk about it, but I'm all like, oh my God, I hope not getting it.
Yeah, so they
You know,
may, the
can't help
symptoms,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
widening the requirements, or the recognition. So, they could be 50 years old and then not really get diagnosed until they're 65 or 62
Right.
or
And
whatever.
if we get the awareness out there, like I was just talking about, to things like I was just discussing, maybe that 50-year-old that's starting to see a tremor will go get long-term disability insurance before they get diagnosed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like that's really important,
absolutely.
Well, also, and there's so many people who thought they had carpal tunnel or thought they had
Oh, yeah.
frozen
many-
shoulder.
How about surgeries on the back that weren't necessary at the end?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. So I am very grateful that I was diagnosed rather quickly on that front.
For sure.
But so more often than not, the medical differences that I'm aware of that are out there are that there's a higher prevalence or higher predictability, a higher rate of it being a genetic link if you get it young than if you get it at a traditional age. However, mine's really idiopathic. Like I don't have any, to my knowledge, no history of it in my family. I've had every genetic test I can have so far, that nothing has been found to link it to that. But I also have no environmental reason to think that I'd have it either. I didn't live in a farm or a golf course or near a factory or anything like that. So I don't really know how or why I got it, which I think is probably how most of us are. Obviously, we're on the drugs a lot longer, so there's a lot higher doses of medication and a lot more side effects that we could have experienced because we're on the drugs for so long. And that's why the DBS surgery has become so popular with the young onset group. I have not partaken in that, and I pray that my meds will keep working until they find something a little less invasive, at least for me. But we also are able to respond and handle therapies much, much easier. So that's on the positive side. And one thing that you may or may not be aware of, I think everybody on the call is probably aware that Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological disease now. It's far surpassed the rate of prevalence of dementia, but it's still somewhat lagging in overall size, but it's racing forward a lot faster. And within the Parkinson's community, the prevalence rates of young onset are running about 1.5 times faster than the traditional PD rates. So, people ask why, and I attribute it to the fact that they are getting more aware of it as being a potential disease to look for in the younger market space. So, that the diagnosis process is improving. But I also believe that there's a lot more out there environmentally that could be affecting us that we don't even know about yet than perhaps before. So I think it's probably a combination of the two myself. So that's all I got on that slide. If there's no questions, we can go forward. So, that was kind of the situation and the environment that I faced when I started wanting to start this program. There were just no real resources out there. Every large organization, looks at the pie of their community, and the percentage of headcount that we represent is never enough to really warrant putting the funding and the budgeting to really do any solid programming on it. So what we would see is, the Parkinson's Foundation would do a quarterly young onset conversation, and the Davis Finney, group would do, a monthly or quarterly call. There wasn't any real organization that was really dedicated to this population. So I really wanted to fill that void and fill the hole. So would now be a good time, Angela, to show the other clip? Am I going to stress your production?
No, but hold on, let me stop the share, and then I've got it up in the background. Did anybody have a question before?
Any questions while she does that, or comments?
Okay, well, let me flip on over. And
what she's going to be putting on is I was fortunate enough to find some solid funding to get me off the ground, and my sales background has helped with continuing to find funding. And this is a video that we had made by a marketing group that we used. And I think it just really tells you what we're all about. So it's only 40 seconds, this one. So.
Okay, here we go.
You are unique, active, determined, resilient. You are not your diagnosis, and you are not alone. This is Young Onset Parkinson's Network. We believe young onset Parkinson's disease does not define you. You define it. We are a safe place to learn, connect, and engage within a supportive community that actually gets it, because we've got it too. Through programs, resources, and special events, we'll provide the help you and your care partner need to live your best life and thrive far beyond diagnosis. Welcome to Young Onset Parkinson's Network. Living well starts here.
So that's our tagline, Living Well Starts Here, which I've learned is pretty much everybody's tagline in PD, since I so thought we had such a great, unique tagline. But that's been kind of our message from the beginning. And, and I'm hoping to spread the message farther and broader. So every time I talk to a group like this, I ask, just, spread the word. If you talk with younger folks that have the condition, please send them our way. We're looking to build our membership quite a bit this year. We have lofty goals. I'll tell you a little bit about our membership now. I think it's coming up next in the deck. So as
and Anna, I will jump in as the care partner and say that was the important part of the video for our folks to know, that it's not just the person with Parkinson's, but it's the care partner and the family and the children and the sibling, everybody,
friends and friends and brothers and sisters and parents, and there's a big circle of those when the patient is a little younger. So
exactly. All right, we'll go back to the slide deck then, and
she gets an A+ on her Zoom skills.
I don't know about that, but
all right, so drum roll, please. Until now, this is the dramatic part. All right, next slide.
Okay, hold on. I lost my slide control. I have no
time. Take your time.
What happened here? There we go. Okay.
What do we got next? Okay, so we launched really kind of a soft launch in July of, I think it was July of 2021, and we did programming throughout that year, but we didn't have a website. We didn't have, a real formal, any kind of member database. We just corresponded via emails and through Eventbrite, and we held some sessions. And then we kind of got really organized and got our 501c3 taken care of and all of that. So we launched the next year and around July 2020, but we didn't even start membership enrollment until March of this past spring. But so we are a membership organization, which is a little bit different than most of the other PD groups, because we feel it's very important to have a tight-knit community, especially for the young onset folks who many, like I said, don't want to be known. So we think that having a safe, tight-knit community is important. Membership is free, but you do become a member in order to be able to come to the meetings, and it's only for those that have young onset or their care partners, as Angela just mentioned. So we do have other meetings where practitioners and such come in to speak with us, but we have the way we do our programming is the second and fourth Tuesdays, just like you all, but we do them at night because most people work. So we do the second Tuesday of every month is a speaker event or an education event, and the fourth Tuesday of every month, which is what today is what we call a community gathering, which is a rather unique concept, I guess, out there. But what we do, it's very simple. It's easy for me. We meet on Zoom, and I might give a few updates, but then we quickly break up into breakout rooms on Zoom of maybe 4 or 5 per room. And we throw out different conversation starters, and really people just chat and network and learn from each other for the good portion of that hour every month. So people keep coming back. So I think it's been good. I know, Carl, did you want to comment at all on the times you've spent in the group?
I find it very enjoyable talking to and meeting new people, and it's a nice close knit group. Yeah. I think it's you have people from all over the world.
Yeah. You want to go to the next slide, Angela? That's a good segue.
Sure.
Next slide, maybe not, but
And
it's coming up.
I'll also
Go ahead,
say,
Angela. Yeah, please tell me what you,
whoops.
that was where I was going. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
it was? Okay.
So you can go back
Pause
one.
for a second. Well,
Yeah.
and I'll say, you really, the caliber of speakers that you have, you're not just, having the medical professionals, you really are focused on that living well
Yeah.
component and, nutrition and mental health issues and improv. Carl just participated in Robert's thing on
Yeah.
improv. All those things, it's a well-rounded approach, I think, to
That's great.
supporting that
Great to
community.
hear. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're really trying to make it different because otherwise, why would we exist, right? So we're really trying to make it applicable, relatable, and helpful for the younger folks. So here's where we stand right now. This is after not even a year. It'll be in March. In this March, it'll be 12 months that we've been recruiting members, but it's a little hard to see. Most of our biggest pockets, though, are obviously in the US. Those yellow circles there, when there's a yellow circle, that means there's a number in there that says how many people are in that area. So I think we have about 9 in our biggest area in the States, which I guess maybe it might be just a cause of the fact that it's the biggest state in the United States, but I'm surprised. I'm always surprised to see we have close to 100 members in California, which, is the farthest place you could get from here, pretty much. So it's definitely far reaching. As far as, you can see some of these dots. I'm like, really? We have people in there, Some guy had dialed in from Egypt one day, and it's unbelievable. The other session we had a Scottish guy come on, and it was like they dial in at like 1 and 2 in the morning for our meetings, and I just think it shows the need for these networks. And unfortunately I can't accommodate every time zone, but we do record all of our sessions, and this is amazing to me because I never intended to be a worldwide network. But it happened, and we're closing on 600 members now, and our goal is to be at 1,500 by this time next year. So, obviously the more members we have, the more interesting sponsors are to help fund, and that's what drives the horse forward. So we have to make sure that we have that in place as well. So. But that's always been defining and surprising image for me to look at and kind of just really go, wow. So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I think I talked to someone from India that one night.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I mean, it's unreal. Not only that they're that far away, but and then you find out what time it is there, and you're like, well, you're up at 3 a.m. for this thing.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you said, Anna. The organizations in these particular countries, they look at the pie of who has Parkinson's in their particular country, and they just might not even have enough resources to even consider even doing special programming specifically. So you're really filling a void worldwide. So it's very exciting.
Very exciting. That's very, very good to hear. That's very exciting to hear. All right, so let's see what we got up next. So this is just a little bit about our programming and what we offer. We do have a website now. I'm happy to say we got that going before we started the membership enrollment drive. We have all of our recordings out there. We actually have a library of a getting started page for folks to kind of give them a little 30-second snippets on how to find things where. This is the main repository where people go to register for our events and our sessions. So you can go forward the next slide. We'll go through these kind of quick. Angela was speaking to this previously. These are some of the topics and speakers that we've had in the last year. So you can see everything from having financial planners in, creating a lifetime of financial security, to the neuroscience of gratitude and the importance of how to have gratitude and have that help your life and live well, to Jimmy Choi, who we all know and respect, to research, to medicine. Like, we try to cover all the aspects. So that's kind of what we've been teaching or promoting recently. This month we have we're doing a winter blues, fighting depression and anxiety in February. March we have a creative, it's a woman whose work is involved with doing research around the benefits of using creative arts for neuroscience diseases or neuro diseases. So that's going to be really interesting. And I think we're doing a session. We are doing a session the next month with a firm that does disability processing and assistance for folks who are applying for the Social Security disability because it's such a hassle. After that, I think we're changing our sites to having a certified sexologist come and talk with us. So we kind of go all over the place with what we talk about, but it's a lot of fun. And then these are some of the ongoing programs we offer on our site for things like fitness and discounts and such. And we have a great podcast if you guys ever want to dial into it. It's Living Well Starts Here, the YOPN podcast. We've just recently interviewed the founder of ESPN. I think his name's Rasmussen, the last name.
Mhm.
And he gets some really good guests on there that have connections to the PD community. So highly recommend you check that out. It should be on all the podcast groups. And what do you got next there on the next slide? And then finally, this is my last slide, I think. So one of the things that we're trying to do, and kind of as a takeoff of that session we had on gratitude, I think one of the biggest ways that you can help yourself with Parkinson's is to kind of get out of yourself, get out of your own little space and look at the world as a larger place that you cohabitate in. And, you know, the more you do for others that are less fortunate than you are, the more you realize that everybody's got issues and you don't get so tied up in your own, and you realize that, you know, there's people out there that are worse off than you. So not that should be the only driving force behind doing volunteer work, but obviously it's helpful, right? I mean, there's a dual benefit, I know, to volunteering. So we did a day of service this year, and this is the group. You'll see some photos here from the group that went with me to the Restore in Chantilly. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Restore. It's connected to the Habitat for Humanity project. And it's basically like a Home Depot Goodwill store. So you can take everything from toilets to window frames to shower curtains to decorations to artwork. Anything that's in your house, you can take and drop off there and donate. And then what they do is they turn around and sell it for like 90% off the retail rate. And then they use that money to help fund the Habitat for Humanity project. So it's a great place to go. It's kind of fun. They got all sorts of crazy things in there. And there's about 900 of these around the country. So our goal was to have them in every city, but I think I got a little ahead of myself. So we had a good one in DC, and I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe next year we'll attack the others. But we then went to a vineyard that's right down the street from there, the Bull Run Winery it was, and listened to some good music, had a picnic lunch and drank some good wine and finished out our day. So that was a really fun and one of our first, face-to-face outings. So that was great. We had about 12 of us there. So that's the kind of things that we're trying to promote, and some of the things we're trying to do, not just for ourselves, but also for the greater community. So, and that's all I got. So that is a little bit about me and a little bit about YOPN.
Great, Anna. Oh, wow. What an interesting journey that seems to have happened in a very short period of time.
I know. It's kind of overwhelming when you think about it. Yeah. So,
but what I admire about you is the fact that you took something that was a challenge in your life, and you took your experience in the business world and applied it to providing this to the community. So you're to be commended. I commend you for doing that. It's no small effort, as we know here at Parkinson Social Network, to run a 501c3. So I definitely appreciate that.
I love to hear that. I have to say, though, that I selfishly still feel like I did this partly just for my own sake, right? I mean, I'm glad it's helping others, but I also knew that if I didn't try to do something similar to what I had been doing, that I'd go out of my mind. So
Right.
that's the other tenet that I always stress is you have to have a purpose. You have to have a reason to get out of bed every day. And it doesn't have to be a big deal, a big thing, but it has to be something. And it might be a different thing than what you had before you had Parkinson's, but you got to find what that is and you got to follow it. Yeah. So Bob, what do you got?
Well, I wanted to comment on your slide. You mentioned the World Parkinson's Coalition. Of course, they sponsor the World Parkinson's Congress, which is coming up in Barcelona.
Yeah.
At the Kyoto conference that we went to in 2019, my wife and I met, of course, Ben Stetcher and Sonia Mathur, who got the award of Volunteer of the Year, I guess, or Activist of the Year. They started this.
The PD Avengers.
Pardon me?
PD Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we met nurses that had young kids in their 30s. Of course, Stetcher got it in his 20s. Now he's a leading activist and amazing guy for the Parkinson's community. Are you planning on going to Barcelona or any
Yeah,
network?
I am. And I'm on the YOPD committee. So I'm helping to craft, this is I understand this might be the first time that they've dedicated actual space for young onset. And I'm working closely with Gaynor. I don't know if you know Gaynor. She lives over in England. She's the head of the committee. And we're trying to get our act together right now, actually, to try to figure out what we're going to do with our space. So
Let's
yeah.
stay in touch. We'll be together. We're going to be in the hotel across from the venue.
Yeah, I'll be right
Let's
around
stay
there.
in touch. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
that'd be great. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you. Yeah.
And with Carl and I are going,
Yeah,
we're breaking
I
out
know.
of this place and headed
Oh,
to.
Carl, by the way, I wanted to get from you that the travel agent information for my Parkinson's Foundation grant, if I can, at some point.
I'm working on it.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, I have to say that I was questioning whether I would go after attending another conference here in DC recently, not because it was a bad conference, it was actually great. But I still struggle with like 4 full days on PD. Like I'm kind of like by like the 3rd day, I'm like, okay, enough already. Like I live this life. Like I don't need to know anything more about it. You know what I
It's
mean?
optional. You don't have, you can pick and choose what you go
I
to.
think I might be on the beach for some of the time, but I
Right,
won't be there.
right.
Well, and I'll say, I'll make a pitch for, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the hallway outside of the
Yeah,
session.
that's what I think. It always does, right?
I go into those places, I get a dopamine release every time. That's great.
Well, it's very relaxing and helpful and, you know, calming, I think, to be around a group that everybody has it or knows about it, and you don't have to have any pretenses up or anything, you
Right.
know.
They had meditation rooms, timeout rooms, you could lie down, you know, it's
Good.
amazing. There were people in there who had a lot of disability that showed up in wheelchairs and stuff.
That's always a hard thing for me too. You know, I mean, I thank God that they're still getting out and God bless them, but you know, it's always hard to see the future. So
And there's people like you where you could hardly tell they got anything, you know. You have the best smile, Parkinson's or non-Parkinson's.
you know,
Excuse me.
sometimes I feel like my mouth is starting to go whoop, and I'm like, no.
I'll be back. I gotta answer this.
I'll add to that. Angela and I have been to 3 of them, and we spent more time running into friends and people that we've met online.
Yeah,
It's like then actually going to some of the events.
yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a big get together.
I got to get my act together. I haven't done anything yet, but I am going. I just have to get around to doing everything. So, yeah.
I do want to commend you on turning your vision into reality. I think it's fantastic.
So much. Well, you guys have done a lot to help me get there. So I really appreciate all your support all the time.
Anna, I have a question for you regarding the I know you've worked with Dr. Yagi, and I know you have a connection with him, but what has been the response from the medical community regarding, you know, are they excited when they hear that this organization is around?
Say, like, you know, they're so busy all the time and, you know, whatnot. I mean, I know Dr. Yagi will sing, you know, the praises, and he's real excited to be involved, although it's hard to get him involved because he's so busy, but he is on the board. And, you know, I definitely think that, like, I know that they know that it's a big issue, but I think we're not there yet, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think they still view us as a minority group, that, you know, and I'm working, was really disheartening to hear was, I don't want to be negative, but I met a woman named Jennifer Johnston, and she's the CEO of a company called NIS Neo Bio, and she lives out in California. She's also on the advisory board for Michael J. Fox, and she had done one of our speaking engagements this last year on research and genetic and YOPD. She specifically focuses on young onset research. And she said at the recent Michael J. Fox Foundation, of all places, right? Their founder is like young onset, obviously. So she was having a really frustrating time with the advisory board or whatever group they were talking with at the foundation on getting their attention to be focused on the YOPD research area, right? And she said, it blows my mind that, you know, that it isn't considered, like, people aren't all over this. Like, this is like where it's at. Like, this is where they need to focus their time, you know? And I guess she was having a hard time getting mind share at Michael J. Fox. So that's a little frustrating and disappointing to hear.
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of, and that's something that Carl and I have had some discussions about, because although Carl is young onset, time is marching on, and now,
Yeah.
Carl, can I say middle-aged?
Oh, okay.
So it's young onset.
Hit 110 when you die.
Yeah.
112.
So, I think that's something that's going to come up in the future, which is these young onsets that are diagnosed so young, and
Yeah.
with good treatments and
Yep.
exercise and attention to detail and in living well with the condition, are going to live to be 80,
know.
90 years old, and they're going to have Parkinson's for all these years. How do we
I know it's going to be really interesting to see. And I guess I need to get to the point where I'm pissed off. Like, I'm still trying to like appease everybody and like get the word out about who we are. So I need to get to my pissed off face, and then maybe we can
I think that's where PD Avengers comes in.
Well,
there's something for every group, right?
well, Anna, why is it such a challenge to get the doctors on the board? Why do you think?
I think it's just mind share, right? I mean, 96% of everybody that they see every day is not my age, right? So I think it's easier. It's just mind share, I think, and awareness. I think certain doctors like mine, and that's why I'm with them, is very, progressive in that regard. But I also think that it's a shame that there's some really backwards doctors out there, and I shouldn't say that there's probably many I've heard of that really feel like, why do like they're fine, like they're not in bad shape. Like I gotta help work with my other clients, or even they'll say things like, well, they'll do the other round, right? And they'll say, well, all they're going to do is sit on a sofa from now forward. So why should I worry about making their tremors better? Because they're not going to do anything, and that's like a horrible, horrible attitude to have. So, I think getting the right doctor, not just from a medical perspective, but one that from a mindset perspective matches yours is really important.
It's interesting, Anna, that physicians, I mean, to me, it sort of defies logic, because physicians are always interested in, sort of, I can't think of a good term, but, like an outlier. So somebody with young onset is a little bit of an outlier, and you would think that they would be doubly fascinated with how they can best address that person's situation, because it's not the person they see all the time.
Right. The best ones definitely are. I'm not trying to say that they aren't out there, but overall, like I think the story that I told, which was really shocking to me as well, that story I just told was about Michael J. Fox, like that really hit home to me to say, like, we're not even close to where we need to be, even more so than I realized, I think. So, yeah.
Well, and I guess I should substantiate my PD Avengers comment, which we are going to have Larry Gifford from PD Avengers coming in February. So stay tuned to that, everybody. The reason why I mentioned them is because of the women's initiative, of Women in Parkinson's initiative. And I think that that's one of the things that they got very upset that the treatments and the research wasn't being done, including women, and then they activated on that. So even
my doctor, I was shocked during. I was just rewatching the. I'm sorry, I had to plug my computer in because it said it's been a 9 minute. And of course the cord wrapped around the chair and everything, completely wrapped around the chair. My own doctor, who I just said was so progressive, when he was asked the question in my meeting about women and hormones and changes and things, he's like, I really don't have much information on that. And I thought, well, that's probably a problem.
Right. Well, and I think the same thing goes for young onset. There's so much that we don't know about. As you said, you didn't have any genetic factors. You have nobody in your family that has it. You've had the testing. They really don't see anything from that. And then you didn't grow up in an area that specifically has been targeted by environmental factors. So with all that said, it's really, it's still a mystery. And then you're dealing with somebody who's so young and still in some ways developing in stages, if you count back 15 or 20
Sure.
years to the first
Yeah.
insult. It's going to be one of those areas I think all of us are going to have to advocate for, whether we have young onset or not. We need to know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these stats that they put out there aren't real. Like 60, they say it's 60-40 men, women. And I mean, maybe mine is skewed because of me. I don't know, but I'm 60-40 the other way. 60 female, 40 male.
Right.
But and I mean, I thank God like every day that I was able to have my kids and everything before I got diagnosed. But I can't imagine getting pregnant with this thing. It would be awful. And then you don't know you probably don't take your meds because I don't know how they do it. I mean, it's really, really really scary. So, but I think the more we have the knowledge, the better. But I'm also a proponent of not really like let them figure it out and know what to do. Like, but I don't need to know about everything until it happens because I don't like to really, I just kind of live in the present. I don't try to project out too far. I just enjoy everything that as much as I can right now.
And that's a great point. I want to be very cognizant of your time because it's a
Sure.
little after 11. Do we have any last questions for Anna? Wrapping up, any comments? Carl?
I was just, I know you just said you don't like to look too far in the future, but do you have any short-term?
Goals?
I know you have short-term. I know you have goals, but where do you see the organization going in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be known as, I want us to be the voice of the young onset community. I think there is a lot of fractional groups out there, which is great. I don't want to suppress any of that, but I think that we're stronger together with one voice. And I think that if we can kind of get everybody under the same umbrella moving forward, we can have more impact across the board. I want to get the word out and I want to get people on board because we've got to, whatever we do, as far as we're not really an advocacy group as of yet, we're really just more of a community for each other. But no matter what direction we go in regards to that, it's not my goal to turn into that. But I think regardless, the more people, the stronger, right? We are. So like I said, our goal is lofty. We want to have 1,500 members by this time next year. We're only at close to 600 now, but I think we'll get there. And, I'm excited about the people that are coming forward and willing to volunteer and help. And, I think it's something that's just going to keep growing. So I hope it does. And I hope I get some more people on board because, it's a lot of work. So, but no, I appreciate the question. And, I've never been one to sit still. So, if you're not moving forward, you're probably moving backwards. So you got to keep moving.
Anna, I find it awe-inspiring what you've been able to do with young onset.
Thank you so much.
Even if you take away the numbers, which are awe-inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's really, it's amazing.
I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Well, and thank you so much, Anna, for giving your time to our organization
absolutely.
today and our
Always
community.
happy to hanging with you guys.
Well, and we will continue to beat the drum and spread the word on this side and certainly make folks aware of what the mission of the organization and what you have to offer. And thank you for sharing with all of us today.
Yeah, thanks for listening to me.
I really appreciate your time.
6 hours. What's that, Nancy? Did you say something?
Yeah, I just said we really apprient your sharing your time and your perspective.
Anytime.
And I think it's helpful that all us little folks try to get the word out about what's out there in the community.
Yeah, I always love talking to folks, meeting new people in the community. I still to this day say I haven't met one I haven't liked. So I think we're a pretty good group. And I haven't met a practitioner who doesn't love everyone in the PD community. They rave about us. I mean, of course they should, right? But they all love, they say, I started working with Parkinson's folks and I can't stop because I love everybody. So I guess if you're really super nice and cool, you're gonna unfortunately get PD, but we'll get through it together, right? So thanks again for letting me bust into your meeting and take it over for a session. And
Well,
Look-
and we will make the recording available, and
Great.
if you're okay with it, share your
Okay.
slides, your email
and
address.
everywhere. I went from one extreme to the other. Tell the world. So,
Carl,
yeah.
do you want to leave the last word on Anna's presentation before we go to discussion?
I just want to thank Anna for joining us, and she's breath of fresh air in the community, and it's she's definitely someone making a difference in a lot of people, a lot of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Can't hear better things. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. You guys take care.
Thank you.